Most everyone from our channel will know who you are. You know, our first conversation did very well, and some people did know you, but I know you picked up a whole lot more fans. So we have your incredible origin story in the very first podcast. So I won't ask you to go over that again, but
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. But if you just wanted to let everyone here who's seeing you for the first time maybe know who you are, at least, and how you define yourself these days, it would probably be helpful.
Okay. Is this it? Are we interviewing right now?
You're in. You're in.
Who am I? I don't have a clue who I am, but I know what you're asking. I've been studying mysticism since the age of 9. At the age of 14, I left Australia, went to Tibet, became an ordained monk at 14. Thought I was a Tibetan monk for 30 years. I don't quite know when I was born. I don't have any records or anything like that. I don't have any family. I do know I'm somewhere between 60 and 70 right now. And during that time, I was a Tibetan monk for quite a lot of years, almost 30 years. Then I went to China and became a Taoist monk for another 5 years in a monastery, Daoshin Monastery in China. Since then, I don't see myself as anything in particular. I wake up each morning as an empty glove and life puts me on and I watch what it does with me through the day. And that's it. That's who I am.
It's really incredible. I'm so fascinated by what do you do as a Tibetan monk every day? What happens? Like you said, you get up, but I'm so fascinated by like the practice of what you do when you're meditating, or just how do you maintain your mind, the clarity and things that you must get from practicing those sort of things every day has got to be otherworldly, and I can't even imagine what your dream life must be like.
This is the dream life, my friend.
Okay, well said. Explain to me though, like how what is it what's it like really? What are your days like as a Tibetan monk?
Now or 30 years ago when I was a Tibetan?
When you first started, I'm curious when you first were getting into it, and then we'll get to now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. In the beginning, Bereshith. In the beginning, when you first arrive as a monk, no one knows what they're in for. Everyone goes there thinking that what they've read in books is what's going to happen, and it's certainly not the case. The first thing you do is you settle in, and that can take a month. Once you've settled in, you start having your routines broken down, your normal everyday routines that your everyday person would have. You get that all broken down. What am I going to do today? What should we do then? What will we do? All of that. That's all gone. So basically, there's not a lot of rules to follow other than go inwards and observe from the inside out. I can give you some exercises later on if you like that makes that happen very, very fast. Once you go in and you first get the first inkling of, oh my goodness, what am I in here, watching those thoughts, that's when it begins. So you start watching, you start observing the way you think, why you think what you think, how you think what you think, where are those thoughts coming from? You start to realize you spend most of your life trying to get away from fear, trying to get away from pain, trying to get away from the confusions of life. And trying to get away from these things, you realize that that's not possible because it's all going on inside your head. And most of the pain and uncomfortableness that you feel and you have felt for most of your life is due to the fact that you can't get away from your pain. You can't get away from your fear. You can't get away from your confusion. People put more effort into what they're going to do today and what they're going to do on Friday night when they go to the nightclub. People put more time and effort looking into those things than they do looking into, how come I've been scared all my life? People won't put half the energy into looking at that. I'm off track, obviously. This is what you see. This is what you learn. You start to look at what you thought was yourself, and then it all begins from there. You are born again. To sound corny, you're born again because everything you thought you were isn't true.
Wayofwilljohn.com. Exclusive content and programs on manifestation, making money, hidden knowledge. Finally, reach your full potential.
This born again portion, I mean, it gets referred to a lot. I mean, like you say, yeah, as cringy as it sounds, it gets talked about a lot. It's discussed. It seems to be a very crucial portion of, let's say, growth as a human, spiritual growth, or just otherwise. And so, the settling in process and watching the mind and understanding that you've been evading your fears and doing all those things. Once that happens, once you're in and you understand what you've been doing, what the monkey mind, let's say, has been doing, how do you then go structure your life in a way that doesn't let you go backwards?
Structuring your life is what creates the problems in the first place, because when you structure your life, you start to set yourself up for 150 expectations. When you have a structure together, you have a futuristic concept of how it's all going to come out and what's going to come of your plans. And of course, that never really happens. Life has a different agenda to the monkey we inhabit.
I'm just curious because what do they then have you do once you've settled in? What are you doing that allows you to be better, let's say?
Once you see and you spend a goodly amount of time watching the thought process that you used to think was you, you realize where fear resides. You realize where ignorance resides. You realize why people can be arrogant and disrespectful and horrible to each other. You realize how wars come about, and it's all right there before you in your thought process. And you see that, and you see the reasons for fear and misery and pain, emotional pain, and the answer, the way to end all of that becomes exceedingly clear, very clear. And it occurs immediately as well. You don't work on it. It's an immediate result. If I'm pressing something reasonably sharp, but not sharp enough to cut you, but if I press it into any part of your body, you're going to go, until I pull it away. All I had to do was pull it away. You didn't have to plan anything, and the pain stopped. When you see the cause and the reasoning behind all of your miseries in life, and you sit back and watch that happening in your thought process, you've pulled yourself away, and the pain immediately stops. It's gone. And that's one of the great things that comes from it, is that, wow, that was quick. And you realize the power that you have. You realize the worth that you have. You realize you are a sovereign being, if that's the right wording. You are your own master.
Well, that's such a huge, number one, responsibility and huge power to have that understanding. And my next question, I guess, is a tough philosophical one that I think a lot of people struggle with. If by structuring the brain, the mind, and by structuring thoughts and having expectations, we are getting ourselves into trouble. And
Absolutely.
then on the other end, if we are not, let's say, a part of the world or the society, let's say, in many aspects, and we are off potentially in a school meditating, where's the balance? How do I, as a person who hasn't left society or is in the bustle and all this, how do I maintain both worlds? How do I maintain that peace? Is it possible?
Before enlightenment, you chop wood and fetch water. After enlightenment, you chop wood and fetch water. Nothing changes. It's just that life can't affect you anymore. You don't respond to it negatively. In the beginning, going way back in the beginning at where we started this conversation, when you realize where all the miseries and all the horrors and disrespects and fears and all of the things that people hold in their heart and in their mind, once you realize and you see where it comes from, you realize that everyone has it in them. So if someone is disrespectful, it's probably because of their insecurities. If someone's negative and nasty, it's because of their own insecurities, their own fears, their own lack of self-respect and confidence. And people take that out on others. Once you see that, it's you don't get affected by it. You see where it's coming from. It's not you. It's not about your worth. It's not about disrespect. It's those people not knowing how to control their own internal emotions and downfalls and feelings of insecurity and feelings of not being good enough for the world. And all of these things make people horrible. It makes them say the wrong things. So you just work, you eat, you sleep, you do everything everyone else does. No one will notice any difference in you at all. But the world doesn't seem to be attacking you anymore. It's not about you being attacked by the world. It's not about life trying to get you, it's not like that at all. And you realize that the misery in the world is our response to our want to control life around us, but never can. And that's where it comes from. What you can do is control yourself. You can stop yourself very quickly from responding to the world with misery, responding to the world with anger, responding to the world with fear. You can stop all of that. And then you are a very, very peaceful, innocent being on the inside, regardless of what's happening around you. You have mastered the bit of life that you wrongly call me.
Wow.
So, and I'll just add this other little bit because a lot of people ask me about this. If you talk like this, mate, and this is how you are your whole life, and you just like rah, 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 and then you find enlightenment, you don't suddenly stop there and start talking like this to everybody. You're pretending and you're a dickhead. You can't tell. You don't change on the outside. The outside, the body you inhabit is still a part of the physical realm, the physical world. Viruses like to visit on a regular basis. Bacteria loves to live here. It's a great place to live. Yeah. So your body is planet. You are not. Two different worlds.
It reminds me now, though, when you're talking about the people who you stop to react to the things, these outside influences, and people and their insecurities, and us trying to control the world. It reminds me of a question that I wanted to ask the first time that I don't think I did, which is a question about, are you familiar with at all the movie The Secret?
No, I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
Okay. All right. It had a massive influence over the last, let's say, 15, 20 years, I think, roughly, on the new age community, and not just the new age community. It's had a massive effect on the planet. And I'm going to sum up the basis of it. Essentially, your thoughts become things, right? I'm reducing it. Clearly, they did say more, but at its core, your thoughts become things, and it led to a massive movement where people wanted to focus on this term manifestation. And so I'm very, very curious on what you think about that, because many people we've had on, and there are many books on this specific subject, on what you want to get. Whether that gives you happiness inside is besides the question, obviously, right?
Yep.
The red car, the red Lamborghini, which is the one they usually name. Like, I didn't say it was going to make me happy. I just want it.
Yeah.
Right? Is there is there anything to this? I mean, if we focus our thoughts on something and put energy and emotion into it, are we manifesting that thing into our world?
Absolutely. Look, you can prove it to yourself within 10 minutes, and it happens to everybody every single day. Focus your mind on an angry thought and watch how quickly you become angry. Focus your mind on a sad thought. Watch how quickly you become sad. You become what you focus your mind on. That's why when you focus your mind on breath, you come back to life. That's what it brings you back to.
Wow.
Whatever you focus your mind on, it will occur. This is one of the wonderful, miraculous things about the human brain. The safety switch is the mind. The brain won't start manifesting until the mind tells it to. Otherwise, it would be a very, very bad place to be. So that's what happens. There was a very powerful Kabbalist way back in the 40s, I think, named Dion Fortune. And she rightly pointed out that if you have something in your mind and you focus on it long enough, you will have it in your hand. It's a very, very real thing. It's about focus. But if you can't focus long enough to relax your body, if you can't focus long enough to do a good set of 10 breaths without wandering off, then you're not going to focus on something long enough to manifest it. That's the only part that isn't easy. You can't stop it. So if you start worrying, you will become a bag full of worry because that's all you're going to focus on. If you focus on illness, you will become ill. You have the power, you do it every single day, but because it's not pointed out to you at school, you think nothing of it. And so yes.
One of the most important things that I have learned interviewing all of these high performance leaders is that clarity of mind is crucial to your success. And what good is clarity of mind without clarity of sound? Which is why today's podcast is sponsored by Rode. We across Golarami use exclusively Rode audio equipment in order to do all of our stuff. If you are an influencer, if you're just a person out there trying to make some good content for your stuff at home, wherever it is, Rode is by far the best audio partner we have ever had. We have been using their stuff for almost 5 years now. Has never let us down. Truly incredible company, especially with all of the other affordable things that you guys can get from them. Check out the link right down below and enjoy the rest of this podcast.
I've always wondered what the world would be like if we had a general understanding at a young age, everyone, that this principle was what was in large part affecting your life, you know?
Yeah.
And even teaching this, because I've seen, even in my own life, I've proved it to myself. I proved it to myself first through sports. You know, visualizing is something that a lot of athletes tend to learn at a younger age. Some don't, and still some doubt the efficacy of it. But it's quite clear. You can almost get to a point where I've had times, let's say, intensely thinking about a certain type of goal, and it will happen in the exact way. It won't be like kind of a bounce before it got to me. It'll be exactly the bounce that I saw and exactly the moment and exactly the place on the box, and nothing will be different than what you think. And so I find it fascinating. Did you, I've never actually asked this question, I don't think, to anyone in your position, but what about the collective mind? What about like you and your monks at a Tibetan monastery, or I'm not sure what they're called, but like, would you guys get together and could you guys collectively affect? Is that more powerful, you guys all together versus one guy with a fractured mind trying to create something?
Yes, it is. Very, very much more powerful. Yeah. The more minds. It's not a matter of collecting minds. It's a matter of pulling mind together. The amount of mind that you may pull together might require 500 people to reside in. There's only one mind and it's in all things. It's a matter of reconnecting with that mind. When you focus your mind, you are connected with the universal mind that just happens on its own. Let me tell you why it's not going right at the moment with the world in this generation. Do you mind?
Yeah, please.
If you live to be 99 years old, 33 of those years you will be asleep. I'm not talking philosophically. You will be sleeping. 8 hours a day over 99 years is about 33 years. So if you live to 99, your average person has only, from my generation, will only see 66 years of that life. Your average person today will spend 8 hours a day minimum, I'm being kind here, doing this. 8 hours a day, da 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 da. Oh, hello, back to the phone. Da 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 da. Oh, I need to pee. Back to the phone. Da 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 da. Some people probably do it while they're on the toilet. So let's say, be kind. Let's say another 8 hours a day. That's another 33 years of life that you're going to miss if you live to be 99. So to be 99 years old, you're going to miss 66 years and you'll be awake for 33 of them. Now, those people in that 33-year category will spend 15 of those years stuck in their head, fearing, hoping, hating, wanting, desiring, opinionizing. So let's take that away. What do we have left? 18 years. So if you live to 99 years old, you will have actually seen 18 of them. And this is why no one can manifest a perfect world at the moment.
Distraction, focus, fear, like these themes just continue to come up, and they are always the stumbling blocks. It's so funny because in so many sectors that we work in with the company, you can still boil down a lot of the issues to just this. There are a lot of nuances, right? You know, a football company does something different, a language company does something different, entertainment does something different. But when you see the problems that people are having and the problems that you're trying to solve for the people, they usually come down to fear, focus, distraction, and these core parts, and giving people and taking that self-confidence and changing that. And then, but really above all, it's so true. Once you can grab at least a small glimpse, I've never been able to study in anywhere near the form and have the time that you've done, but just a small glimpse of the madness that your monkey mind is. When you can just grab a hold of it just a little bit and start to get it on your side and start to get a little aware of it. It's an exponential change in your life, in your being, your peace, and your harmony.
Absolutely.
And so it's like that's the one thing that I've just been trying to get. It's like just a little bit goes a long way. And so my next question actually has to do with the sleep practice, because it's great that you brought it up. But like, there are people that do lucid dreaming, out of body experiences, and things. I have one question, because you mentioned something that you used to do as well that I want to touch on. But is there a way to have a cool sleep dream practice? Do you use your dreams ever in order to enhance or to stay aware? Do you stay aware? I know these are types of things. I believe that Tibetan dream yoga is a thing. Do you use that at all? Is it something you've experienced?
No, these days I watch this body go to sleep, and I watch it dream, and I watch it wake up. And the day doesn't end.
Is that not tiring in and of itself?
No, the body goes to sleep, the mind. But the mind isn't the brain. They're two completely different things. The mind, awareness, consciousness, you're not made of matter. It's invisible. It can't be touched. That's a part of you that is immortal. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to sleep. Your average person that doesn't put any effort into focus whatsoever, when the body falls asleep, they become unconscious. They lose consciousness. It's almost a habit. But you can break that habit. You can watch your body go to sleep. You can watch it rest. The muscles rest, the heart rests, everything rests. You can watch it doing that. You'll see the brain regurgitating information while it thinks you're asleep. And it's resting. And if you do any training, you'll feel and hear the little squeaks of the muscles as they're starting to grow. Any hardcore bodybuilder will tell you they can feel their muscles growing at nighttime. You can feel it growing, and you can feel the fascia stretching around the muscle as it's growing. Wow. These kinds of things. You watch it, you become aware of everything, but you, as mind, you don't sleep. If the mind slept, you wouldn't know that you've been dreaming. So in every human being, if you're dreaming, it means that your awareness hasn't become unconscious. You're watching what your brain is doing while it thinks you're asleep, basically. So for me, it's been a long time. I just, yeah, my body goes to sleep. Sometimes it's not convenient, so you pull it out of its sleep.
Mm.
I wouldn't
Mhm.
recommend that. Everyone's done that, especially when you have to go to work early in the morning and it's cold and raining and you've got to pull yourself out of sleep. I'm way off track again, but that's me.
No, it's because I'm very curious just of that sleep practice. It's such a different way of engaging. You know, we just talked about awareness and distraction, and most people, when they are done with their day, is just head on pillow, whatever. You know, just let me just be here, and they just cancel. All right, the next 8 hours
Yeah,
are
yeah.
just gone. And you know, even in my own practice and discovering lucid dreaming and having out of body experiences since I was a teenager, you know, not knowing what they were, and then you know, working on it, like you said, that training is amazing. One of the funniest things that I've never experienced the muscles growing, which I have never put awareness on that, but one of the first things that happened to me in doing that training was that I could hear myself snoring. Uh, And I was like, what is that? You know, and yeah, you know, I'm your body is relaxed, your legs go, this goes, you feel light, and it's amazing to do. If anybody that's never tried it, it's something you can learn. You'll fail. I failed it the first few times. You're gonna fall asleep, and but you can learn it. It's just a natural process of watching your body go to sleep.
It's a habit. You habitually fall unconscious. It's the major problem at death. You fall unconscious out of fear at your death on your deathbed, so you miss the process. And then, of course, you got to start again.
What happens? What happens at death then? What happens after death? Was this sort of a practice that is
To your average person dying, you mean?
sure?
Oh, your average person, when they die, they're going to get the three options. There will be a light at the end of a tunnel somewhere, all of that stuff. Is that what you mean?
Sure. I'm curious what happens because it's the one of the eternal questions for people.
Well, basically, most people faint on their deathbed out of fear, horror, this kind of thing. And they miss it. So there's a big glitch. You know, if you've got the most wonderful program in the world that would run your household and your life to absolute perfection, but there's a big section missing, now that's going to turn to shit real quick, isn't it? So as one life, you're moving through life, you faint at the point that, you know, a crucial part of your life, which is death. You miss the whole thing, and then before you know it, oh, you're in a cot somewhere and you've woken up, but you're not going to remember that death because you checked out. Exactly the same as falling asleep and not realizing you've fallen asleep. If you train yourself to focus long before your deathbed, you will actually be quite excited about dying, because if you focused enough, you'll realize that you're not the one that dies. You watch it on the inside. You'll realize, you know, you are untouchable, you are unfeelable, you are unlocatable in here. You can't cut someone open and go, oh, look, there's Will's consciousness, there's Will's attention, right? You can't do that. So, am I answering the right question here?
Yeah, you 100%. You are. What
Okay.
the next portion of it then is how should we be dying? We should be dying consciously, or we should be dying with awareness.
Oh, absolutely. Look forward to it. But that's easy to say if you haven't done it a few times. You know, we're not so much scared of the unknown, we are more scared of the known ending.
Mm.
And they know life. By the time you're very old and you've lived a long time and you're about to die, you know your limitations, you know what you like to eat, you know how long you like to sleep, you know your body, you've been in it a long time. So now that's going to get taken away from you and you're about to move into the unknown. It's not the unknown that you're scared of. It seems that way It's the ending of the world that you do know that scares you. You know, if you spend 50 years of your life wanting a comfortable bed because you've spent the first half of your life sleeping on a dirt floor, spend your whole life wanting a really nice bed, and you get that bed, and then someone goes, "Oh no, sorry, we sent this to the wrong person," and they try to take that bed away from you. It's been the most wonderful thing in your life. You're going to get really shitty.
Of course. Of course.
So you get to know your life. You spend 60, 70 years, whatever it is, and you learn how to make yourself feel safe and warm and comfortable and reasonably at peace within yourself. And then life goes, nope, sorry, that's got to go now. And
Yeah.
grasp.
Attachment.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
When you're focused, attachment, fear, distraction, that's all gone immediately. They are all complications of lack of focus. They're not things to work on. That will waste 2 of your lifetimes.
Mm-hmm. I was reading a book. I believe it's called The Art of. It's not The Art of War, the classic one. It's called The Art of War. The Japanese Art of War, I believe, and it's actually not about war in the traditional sense. It's actually about Zen Buddhism. I believe.
Are we talking Musashi here?
They highlight a lot of Musashi's content. They highlight a whole lot of what he wrote, but it's not strictly for him. They pull from other Zen sources and such. But the one point that I wanted to highlight that I'm curious if you agree with is that they discussed the mind, distraction, a distracted mind, an unfocused mind. They called it a sickness, what I thought was very interesting. They called the mind in these states sick, and classifying, the author went on to then state that our society would then have to classify our collective minds and our individual minds as sick, that you have a sickness. You are not supposed to be a distracted being, that this is not you in your best state. And if you could only start to clean, some edges of that mind out and sweep away the distraction and sweep away that stuff, that you would see and react in the world in a completely different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I'm just curious if that is the way that it was, let's say, taught to you, or if you understand it as that we feel we have a sickness in a certain sense.
It's your education. We are not educated to focus to that extreme point where you enter into another realm of being. We're not taught to focus our minds on the very things that matter in our lives, like our emotions, our consciousness, our mind, our brain, and then the difference between all of those things. It's not in our education. Our education is more focused towards keeping our society clean and polished and doing all the things that society does. Basically, you are educated to go into this, okay, this is how you see it. Let's pick a city, Melbourne. Sorry, Australia, it could be any city. I'm just going Melbourne. So you got this big chunk of concrete with windows and stuff in it. And all of these people live on the outskirts, all of these little people. Now, if you watch it from high above, sun comes up, all of these people go into the big bit of concrete, and they polish it and clean it and put things in there, more windows, more streets, do this, do that. Sun starts going down, everyone goes home. Sun comes up, cleaning. You get educated to fit into that somewhere, somehow. That's the problem.
Yeah. And having a thought outside of that, or having thoughts outside of that, make you kind of the outcast. It's very hard to be outside of that and be inside of that at the same time. I've tried my best to live a life that allows for some things outside of that. I think I've done a decent job and continuing to try to do more. But I actually want to go back really quick to something that is also probably talked about. You must have touched on this, but reincarnation and past lives.
Ooh, love that stuff. Yes.
How does that then work within the death? This whole, because I struggle to find a proper model for how it's done, and I know it gets talked about and discussed, but surely you have some insight.
Here we. All right then, give me a sec here. Allow me
Sure.
to compose myself. A little bit of a story coming up. You okay with that?
No.
Not long before you were born, and this is going to sound odd. I say this to a few people, but please bear with me. And I'm going to mention bird and bird shit, and I'll tell you now, the bird and the bird shit's got really nothing to do with the story, but it's a segue thing. So let's go. Not long before you were born, a bird would have flown across the sky and had a shit. In that shit, there would have been a seed. It's just natural nature. When a seed or anything touches the earth, it wakes up. And now it's got a very limited amount of time for that seed now has to start pulling planet into itself. It's got to start pulling in nutrients, minerals, amino acids, everything that a seed needs to build a wonderful little tree around itself. Everything has DNA. That's your scaffold. So this seed knows what it's supposed to look like. It's got a DNA in there. So it pulls in bits of planet, builds this tree around itself. Eventually, it'll grow an apple. Your mother comes along, eats the apple. 15, 20 minutes later, that apple is your mother, becomes your mother, and every other little bit of planet that your mother ate that day. If she has enough access, and if the timing is correct, she will build another little vehicle out of her accessed planet that she's been consuming, and that other little vehicle, that's you. As soon as you pop out of your mother, you've got to start pushing planet into your face now for the rest of your life. And you've built the body. Your mother made this little body. You've made the one that you're in now. You have built that around you by pushing planet into your face 3 times a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. And this is how you build your body. It is literally a chunk of planet. Now, the planet is billions of years old. That means that this body you are in is also billions of years old because it's made out of the planet. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have built this. The planet has billions of years of memory, physical memory. Okay, now we're getting towards how do we know about reincarnation? So the food that you've eaten might have been the finger of one person 25,000 years ago, the eyelid of another person 1,000,000 years ago. This is what you're eating. And all of that knowledge, all of that information is in this body. This body has its own little processor constantly talking to you, whatever you are in there animating that body. Let's face it, when you step out of that body, it goes back to dirt. So if you're in a pile of sand, as it's drying, the wind's blowing the sand away, you've got to keep doing this. Keep that sand pile there. This is what you do to your body. Now, let's consider, just for a moment, I'm getting to your question, just for a moment, let's consider that today you can buy a vehicle that can plug itself in. That basically means you've got a car that can feed itself. So you have cars now, they can park wherever they need to park to get charged up. They feed themselves. They can stop faster than a human being can stop the car. If a child runs out in front of this car, it'll stop 10 times quicker than you can. It's that quick. It won't hit the curbs. It won't hit another car. It's absolutely safe because it's got all of these sensors. All the time it's talking to you, the driver. It's telling you the temperature outside, the temperature inside, how fast you're going, how much power you got left, how hungry your vehicle is right now, got to put more power into it. Constantly chatter, 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 chatter. Now, for all of this technological brilliance, this car will never, ever be able to tell you about human beings. It doesn't know that a human lives. It doesn't know that a human eats. It knows nothing about people. So to ask your car, what should I do today, car? You would be an absolute dickhead to think you're going to get the correct answer. Now, in the same way, you've got this vehicle. Just before the vehicle is born, you enter in through the fontanelle. You also leave from the fontanelle as well, by the way. So you're in that baby. You've just bought yourself a new car, probably a Tesla, and it's talking to you constantly. So what do we do? So you are in this vehicle. You are not made of matter. You are not locatable. You're totally invisible. And you're going to ask this physical vehicle that knows nothing other than physical things, tell me about enlightenment, car. What's the car going to do? Oh, yeah, I'll go over and write a book about it. So what am I saying? You've got to get out of the vehicle to experience real life. If you sit in that vehicle, think with the windows up, thinking that you're learning about life, you're not. You're not at all. You're just, what you think you're learning about life is what your car is telling you about life, and it doesn't know anything about it. It does what it does, and it does it well, but enlightenment is not one of the things that it does. It can manifest anything made of matter. That's what it does. It can go anywhere you want it to go. It can do many, many things on a physical realm, but don't start asking it to tell you about your spirituality. So it doesn't care, it doesn't know, and it won't. Get out of your body, and all your answers are there like that. Now, awareness. You can start looking into the memories of this meat, this body, this bit of planet that you are inhabiting right now. The physical memories are there. Then, of course, you have the mind, which moves from body to body to body, that has its memories. It gets its memories from the Akashic records. The body has its memories from the planet that it is a part thereof. When these two come together, you can navigate, you can use these two tools and navigate yourself back through previous existences. The mind has always existed. The body, obviously, at best, will hold itself together for maybe 100 years if you're lucky. Then it's time to get another car. So it's all in that.
Wow. And could a person then train themselves? All right, let me put it in a more simple manner. Whatever you do consistently, you generally tend to get better at. Whether that's poor habitual thinking or good habitual thinking or practicing basketball or whatever it is, could you then train yourself to get good at understanding your body and what it, or maybe even better put, what each and every single one of those past lives were? By getting out, would you then be able to track it back and say, first I had this Tesla, then I was inside of this Tesla, and then this one, and this one, and this one, and does all of that then encompass the you that you are now? Is it knowledge of that, or is it unawareness? Because I have a love of Italian, let's say. I speak Italian without ever having gone to Italy. I somehow got it in my head that I wanted to learn the language and do it, right? And people joke with me, that I'm Italian, right? That I must have been an Italian guy before. Right? But it begs a fun question, of like, well, what about that? What if we are made up of that? What is encompassing the me that is me now?
What is encompassing the you that is you now?
From my past.
The real you has never changed. It's always the real you, the mind, if that's what you mean, the spirit. Many names for one thing. It's like God. Many, many names for the same thing. So it's a very difficult question because it's the question's a little bit twisted.
Okay. Help me straighten it.
Yeah, straighten the question, because you've got this body that you're in now. When you get your next body, and I'm really simplifying this, when you get your next body, it's made out of the same planet that the one you're in is made out of. In reality, on that level, you've always got the same body.
I see what you mean.
It's a bit of the planets. You see what I'm doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely and totally get it. I just feel like the traditional way of people dealing with past lives is that they want to say, I was this person and it had or we could track it back, right? I'm me now. Before I was the Italian guy, Giuseppe. Before that, I was Nikola Tesla. Before that, I was Caesar. Before this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and so on. Uh, but it also, this or an understanding of these things brings me to another subject that I love to discuss as well, which is the Siddhis. And, we touched on, I think you briefly touched on a telepathic experience that you had in our last conversation. But the Siddhis in general, maybe you could explain what they are because you would do a better job than I would. And if we can train them, and I'll just put the small caveat in there, every single book that I've ever read on this subject or on these spiritual teachings always states that wanting to have the siddhis or getting into them is a clear distraction and an issue, and that it's recommended against doing them or having them and using them. But yeah, so what are the siddhis, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. That book was probably written by someone that has never experienced the cities. I hear it a lot. As you've probably seen, for a few years, I was moving things, levitating things, catching things on fire. Okay. Let's say that you and I have saved up our money and we've given up having a family, we've given up having children and all of this, and you and I have decided to go on a train trip to Shambhala, assuming wrongly that there's a train track going to Shambhala, let's say, okay, hypothetical here. And we know for a fact that when we get to Shambhala, we will have all the answers to life that we have ever wanted. It will be the absolute pinnacle and paradise of our lives when we get there. And we know that for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on the train. We get halfway along our journey and we get off, we stop off, and we have a bit of chai and we have a bit of a joke, and I show you something, I'll move something and you'll go, oh, wow. And then a bunch of people around us just happen to see me move something and they go, oh, wow, look what he can do. Teach us, teach us. Come and stay in our village for a week. I talk to you. Can we spend a week here? What do you think? You go, yeah, why not? They're lovely people. It's a nice place. So we spend a week there. You bump into a girl. You fall in love with the girl. And this goes on for 6 months or more. Eventually you can't leave because you've got a family now. I don't want to leave because everyone adores me like a god, and I don't want to leave that. That is like the cities.
Uh-huh.
We were on a train 6 months ago. We were on our way to absolute enlightened bliss. And because a few people went, wow, look how wonderful you are, because you fell in love with a beautiful creature, we got off the train and we got sidetracked, and now we fucked it. So what's going to happen is, as you go inwards, as you start to observe and watch yourself and see what your brain does, how it creates misery, how it creates passion, how it creates all the things that you create in your life and you manifest. Once you see that, you start to approach the cities very quickly. For those who don't know what cities are, it's basically when you get to that part of your training or your observation where you realize you are in all things. There are no other people. There is one mind, one spirit, one life, one God, if that's what you want to call it. It's right there on the end of your nose, and it is in all things. Once you realize that, you'll move a pen without touching it. Why couldn't you? You can move that without touching it. So why can't you move a pen over there without touching it? Because you are in all things. That should happen. And because you've come to this realization through evidential means, not reading a book or just believing in it, through actual evidential means, it happens immediately and you've got it. It just starts to happen. But that has got nothing to do with spirituality. It has no bearing on your need for absolute truth whatsoever. So if you get caught up in it, you basically fell off your train. So you don't stop there. I spent 3, maybe 5 years there, And then I started to miss the freedom of mind. I needed to get back on track. Hundreds of millions of people. I've been offered $5 million to go and do something like that. I almost fell into it, but at the moment, I'm still getting people. Someone, I think 6 months ago, offered us $500,000 to fly over to Russia and just move something.
Wow.
But then I would be falling back into it. I did make a mistake at the moment. A Japanese company of scientists paid us quite a sum of money quite a while ago now, for them to do. They didn't, how can I put this? They basically wanted to put all sorts of things on you,
Right.
hook you up, and
They
make all of
they
that.
do that. Yeah.
But also with the contract, which I personally didn't sign, but someone on my behalf did. I don't think I would have, to be honest. Got me caught up in a contract where I can't, if I did want to go and do this with some other people, if I was to accept money from anyone else to show the cities, they will sue me because in the contract I am exclusively theirs, apparently. To be honest, none of that bothers me.
Sure.
To be honest,
Yeah.
there's a contract based on something that I don't do anymore. It's that simple.
Yeah, of course. It's so fascinating that we're so controlling over this, because the idea, I mean, while cool, and while I don't know that I've experienced anything specific that would classify within that nature, but we're so obsessed with trying to get these things either as weapons or as some form of a tool to be over. I mean, you would love to believe that every scientist is just curious about it and just wants, everybody to know, hey, look, if he can do it, you can do it too. Like, that's what he's saying. He's saying you can do that too. And we would all live happily ever after, knowing that we're more than just our bodies. But that's obviously not the case with most of the time. There's generally some ulterior motives behind wanting to understand.
They're using their Tesla to understand these things. It's not going to happen.
They're using their their Tesla. But that's the thing. You could never tell someone who is deeply entrenched within matter and in those things that they're looking in the wrong place, because they are so certain, more certain, I would say, in many cases, than some people who are in, let's say, a full and utter religious or spiritual realm. They're so certain because, of course, matter is so right here. I can feel it.
Yeah.
And everything you're talking about, I can't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. And so they're so entrenched in it. And it's so fascinating to me that that's the case. I'm curious of one other. Since I unfortunately today have to run, but I always love the talks with you are always so inspiring. And I know everyone loves these. And probably for some people also depressing, because they know that now their monkey mind is, and they're maybe off on the wrong path. But there is one subject that I think is fringe that I would love to get your thoughts on, or at least an idea of. I don't remember if I asked you, but aliens. What about aliens? What do we do with this understanding? You've talked about our planet and building our planet. What about the other planets?
Can I give you another little story?
Please.
It'll answer it for you. What about
Sure.
planets? Okay. Life is very curious. Take life out of you, but don't stop your heart. Just take life out of you. You have no curiosity. Someone who is so depressed they may as well not be alive. They have no curiosity. When you're alive, you are curious. When you're not alive, you're not curious. So what does that tell you? Life is full of curiosity. Because if you've got life in you, you can't help it. You're curious. Even if it's just as small as, oh, I wonder what this tastes like. That's curious, If life knew what it was, it would go straight to the end result. But it doesn't know what it is. It is unfolding. It is curious. It wants to know what it is. The best way to do that is to observe itself from as many viewpoints as possible via as many different, what's the word I'm looking, viewpoints.
Vessels,
Yes.
etc.
Now, if you're a live bacteria on a planet in another galaxy, the life in that bacteria is the same life that's in you. It's the same life that's in a tree. It's life. So, life is in all things. And it doesn't just do what it's doing on this planet. Life does what it's doing on every planet. So now life is watching itself through my eyes, through your eyes, through the eyes of a whale, through the feelings of the tree, through the whatever it is that a worm does. Life is observing itself through all things because it's the one life in all things. Now, consider this. Out there in the universe, and the universe is absolutely saturated in life. Let's say there's 100 billion, gazillion, trillion, million life forms. That means that life is now observing itself through 100 gazillion, trillion, billion, million different perspectives. It's to seeing itself. The whole universe is watching itself through all of the creatures that are there within it. Now, for all of those 100 billion, gazillion, million, trillion light forms that are out there, not one of them has the same perspective you have. Not one of them has the same perspective I have. That makes you unique. Doesn't matter how much life is out there, you are unique. And so am I, and so is every other little blob. So wherever there's a planet, there are creatures eating that planet and building themselves, and life is in every single one of them. Aliens are just a part of you as I am. That's probably not what your question was specifically, but they're there. Obviously, life is there, you know.
And they're there in a way that is, well, should I ask the obvious question that I think someone would ask? Well, how come we don't? Where are they? How come I can't see them? Are they in another dimension? Are they in another? Is the wavelength, or sorry, not wavelength, but the frequency? Are they off? Why can't we? Why don't I run into and see the guy from Mars or Jupiter or whatever planet? Or it really doesn't matter. I'm just using those as the common themes. But how come I don't have an alien friend?
Well, imagine if a native South American was wondering why they don't have any Spanish friends. That probably didn't sound right. But what I mean by that is Spain went over there with all the greatest intentions and just with one little virus wiped out an entire civilization. And that's on the same planet.
Yeah.
Someone comes to this planet. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to say. What I want to say is anything that's not of this earth, anything that's not walking around in a chunk of dirt like we are. I mean, we're all beauty spots on the face of the planet if you want to look at it in a romantic way. So, a ghost, a spirit, they're extraterrestrial. You see? Extraterrestrial, more than dirt, more than planet, more than earth, extraterrestrial. That's what that means. From another planet, same thing. They're all out there. So we are being, I mean, obviously now you must have seen, everyone knows now that the UFOs, we're seeing millions of them every year. They're landing now. They're everywhere at the moment. The governments are going, shit, there's UFOs here and we don't know what they are. We don't know what they want. You know that. It's everywhere at the moment. It's happened.
Yeah.
They're here.
Yeah.
But we don't see them. Reason being, some of these civilizations are 100,000 years in front of us. To upload their consciousness onto a chipboard, I'm not technologically savvy here. A computer board, okay? A chip.
Sure.
Digital.
Yes.
So we were almost there ourselves and we're like bacteria compared to these guys. So they upload their consciousness, they put it in a sphere that can travel at the speed of light. It's not going to affect them. And that's what we're seeing. These orbs that everyone's seeing at the moment that are almost running into our airliners right now. That's how many of them there are in our skies at the moment. They are here as an avatar for other creatures that are using those orbs to upload their consciousness in, and they're here like we've got rovers on Mars. They have their things coming here. Now, they might have one bacteria that might be worse than Ebola to us. We don't know. But to them, it might be a necessary thing. We have necessary bacteria on us. We would die without certain bacteria. What we perceive as Ebola might be a bacteria that is necessary for their health and their maintenance. But if they came here, just like when the Spaniards arrived in South America, that might totally wipe us out. That might have been what COVID was. That might have been what Ebola was. Who knows? They're not going to tell us. So I've completely forgotten your question, but
No, you answered it though. You actually, yeah, you clearly have actually answered it. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate, to some degree, just because I know that would be the follow-up question, but you've completely completely answered it. It's one that I actually don't worry about too much. It's not, worry is probably the wrong word. I don't worry about it, but it is an intriguing question, just because, like I said, hey, where's my alien friend? That'd be kind of cool. But yeah,
you've
listen, I
probably
have to.
you probably got one. He's just
Yeah,
not been
okay. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Right? I mean, yeah, some of the way my friends act too, to be honest, it would be better if they were probably alien, not from the same. Yeah. But yeah, no, so always a pleasure. Listen, and I know we will do it again, and I hope, because I will be over and in and around near you sometime this upcoming year, since I guess we're about to enter this new year, that we could do something in person. I think that people would love it, and we could have a more long form conversation.
I have the most wonderful forest just here.
I've never been yet, and so it would be a pleasure. I think we should totally work it out and see if we can't make that happen. But for everybody who is even listening, though, if you're listening to this, obviously everything is in the show notes, and if you are watching, we will link to Grandmaster Wolf's YouTube channel and website, anything else that you would want us to link to. But it's always obviously such a pleasure.
May I finish off on an answer to a question that someone asked me this morning and I didn't get a chance to answer? And I know they'll be watching this. Do you mind at all?
Please do,
time?
please. Yeah, sure.
Okay. If your best friend, people go, where's God? If God is so real, why can't I see God? Blah, 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 blah. Obviously, it depends on what your definition of God is as well. I'll just call it life. But anyway. If your best friend is walking down the street towards you and you're the kind of person that would go, oh, look, here comes a pair of blue sneakers. And in those sneakers, there's some green socks. Oh, look, there's a pair of legs as well. Oh, the legs seem to be wearing blue jeans. Oh, look at the belt. The nose, the nipples, the chin, you go up the whole thing. So when your best friend, Bob, is walking down the street, you don't go, oh, look, here comes a pair of shoes. And by the time you finish that, you don't know who you're looking at. It's just a whole bunch of shit coming towards you, right? You do the same thing with life, God, whatever you want to call it. It's right there in front of you. But whatever you're going, oh, look, there's a mouse and there's a dog and there's a cat. Oh, look, that's a tree. Oh, there's a moon. Goodness me, that must be a sun up there. You're doing exactly the same thing. You're building this beautiful, big, miraculous creature that we are all a part of, this entity that is so mysterious, of life itself, or whatever you want to call it. And it's right there on the tip of your nose as soon as you get up out of bed in the morning. And what's the first thing you do? You turn it into a toilet and a penis, and I've got to go and have a wee, and the bed's over there, and there's people out there, and there's a cat over there. You just broke this wonderful thing that you've just become conscious of again today, and you're missing the bloody thing.
So it's a perfect thing to end on. Be aware. Stop falling into distraction and focus. When we talked all about this entire time. Once again, thank you so much. Guys, enjoy this podcast and check out everything else we got for you down in the show notes, and we'll see you soon.
Wunderbar.